Okay, so let's just locate the Dan Chen. So thumb in the navel and the fingers underneath it. Can you hear me? Okay. So just feel the power of touch. Yeah. When you touch yourself, the mind automatically goes there. And if someone else was to touch you, your mind would even more go there. So this is a nice posture to sort of meditate in. So the two sides are quite different. So you've automatically got a sort of single weighted aspect. You just feel that, when you do the abdominal breathing, so when you let the belly expand as you breathe in, then the belly sort of pushes the thumb out a little bit. But if you try the reverse breathing, if you suck the belly in as you breathe in, the thumb gets sucked into the navel. And you can feel that the navel is above the point of maximum contraction. So the point of maximum contraction is sort of down here. And that's the Dan Chen. Okay, now let's just try breathing in and just pulling the belly in and then out. So the reverse breathing. So and just be aware of the kidney region. So as you pull the belly in, it's like you're squeezing the energy into the kidney areas here. And then you just let it come forwards. So the kidneys are like two sort of storage areas, two reservoirs or silos, pulling the belly in and release. In, release. Yeah, so it all sucks in at the Dan Chen, the point here, and then it splits into the two kidneys and out. So, And then one more. And now let's just work with the stick a bit. Yeah, so when you get it behind the neck and rest your hands on it, just let the elbows hang down. So we're wanting it to sort of flatten out the upper back so that to get the chest up a bit. So it's not this, it's not slumping forwards. We want to let the stick straighten the spine. And you can just let the stick down if you want. Okay, so now let's just turn. So just build it up slowly. But feel the tension phase, which is the twisting to the side, followed by the relaxation phase, which is letting it spring back to the front. And just maintain like an even tension in the belt of the waist. So this is what we're trying to develop with these stick exercises, is the muscular belt of the waist. Okay, let's just go straight into the tipping to the sides one. Okay. So now let's just try a bit of just pushing it up above the head. So just up. So really looking up, so the chest really rising. And then as though you have to pull it down like it's being held up. So we want to work on both phases. So we're working the back primarily to get the stick up, and then we want to just pull the belly in and use that to start the down. So the back and the belly. So we just want to really unify the back and the belly. So when the back gets to its maximum extension, the belly becomes so stretched that it's a simple thing for it to kick in. And then here I become so curved and crumpled that the back is stretched, and then that can quite easily kick in. So one muscle working stimulates the other muscle to kick in and alternate. Okay, now let's try a few, just the one where we let the arms slip behind. So you have to grab the sticks right at the very end for this. So, wow. You just let yourself go through that range of emotion. So here, this is quite sort of pulled in and grim. And then here you really expand and open up. And then you pull it in again, but it never gets quite as far in because the arms are behind. And now let's just try just a few of the pulling and pushing. So just pulling the stick, pulling the hands away from each other, just enough grip of the stick so the hands don't slide. And it can be really gentle. I want to feel this pulling phase as being like a breathing in. So I can coordinate my actual breathing with it, but I don't need to, because there's a sense that the body is filling with energy. So it's like I'm breathing the energy. And it's more like a mood. You know? So as I pull the stick, my mood lifts. There's a sort of a sense of something rising in me, a brightness, a cheerfulness. And then when I press the stick, there's a sense of deflation, of breathing out, exhaling the energy, and a consequent, almost a depressing of the energy sinking, getting quiet, and inactive, which we would associate with depression if we were depressed. But really, it's just quietness. This is what people find so difficult about quietening the mind. They just associate that quietness with not feeling good. Okay, now pulling again. And here it's like, ooh, I'm filling up. Almost like the heart is like a flower that's bursting into blossom. And then pressing the other way, pushing the hands towards each other. And now it's like the movie's gone into reverse. So the heart is furling up and retreating inside. So this is the yielding phase, the drawing in. So we just have to really become accustomed to this phase, because this is the phase that we want to be there most of the time. And then just pulling. And pushing. Okay. Slowly adapt to the vertigo of standing up. Okay, so let's just moving leg to leg, but just with a gentle figure of 8 around the feet. Yeah, so we have to remind ourselves each session really of the origin of Tai Chi. Yeah, so the Chinese are always at pains to point out that Tai Chi was invented by a Taoist enlightened master in order to teach his spiritual insights to as many people as possible. So it's not ostensibly a martial art. That's the stress really. It's a spiritual discipline. And all spiritual discipline is basically concerned with one thing, and that is the reduction of the ego. And so the ego is housed obviously in the head. And so in Tai Chi, we sink and relax just to try and drain the energy out of that place and let it flow through the body into the ground. And as it does so, so the one becomes two as it splits into the legs. So the ego is very much the one thing. And so if I can somehow wake up my dual aspect, wake up to the fact that I'm two sides then I'm assisting that process of diminishing the ego. So I'm feeling the weight passing around the feet. So from the heel around the outside edge through the toes and then into the other one. And the sinking is largely down the back. So down the back of the legs in particular. So this feeling that the buttocks are melting and drooping and slipping down the back of your legs and into the ground. They're getting sort of underneath your feet. That's the feeling. Yeah, so let's just try and just concentrate on the leg that we're leaving, the leg we're coming out of, yeah? So when we come into the leg, it's obviously become tense and strong in order to hold my weight. And then as I leave it, I really want to just let it relax and just let all of that flush out of it. So as I sink into this leg, there's a sense that this leg is moving in that direction because the tension is just flowing out of it. So what I don't want is to move into this leg and sort of pull this leg with me and my weight come onto the inside edge and the outside edge peel off the ground. I want this sense of jettisoning the leg, that I'm letting it go and I'm just letting the tension that it housed flow out of it. This is difficult, just flushing the leg out. So we're invested in our tension, especially men. Yeah? They tend to think that their tension is their strength, is their identity, is their ego. So I come into this leg and I just let go here. So there's a real sense of a wave flowing down the leg. So my weight comes into here, my body weight, but the weight of this leg remains on this foot. I'd have to do something extra if I wanted to take it off the ground. So it's a strange feeling because I've got a sense of sort of moving in both directions. I'm obviously moving in this direction, but there's a sense that part of me is flowing in that direction as I release it. Ooh. The letting go of tension is really, it's difficult, yeah. Partly because we don't realize the tension is there. And secondly, it's normally there for a reason, yeah. So we just have to grow up. In order to let go, you have to really grow up. You have to stop holding on to the wounded child. Ooh. Okay, so let's just bring it to riding horse. So just feeling the dantian. So just this sense that it's withdrawing, and it's that pulling in really that's actually sending you backwards, so that you will get a real sense of being behind your legs. So rather than settled on top of my legs, which would be this, I'm behind, so I can get down the back of them. And just with my presence, I create this circuit. You know, John could just wander up to me, and I would just feel my energy rising like this because he was scooping underneath, just with his presence. He wasn't aware of it because he just had so much practice in sinking and relaxing, and such strong legs. So now let's just breathe it. Again, with the reverse breathing. So breathing in as you pull in, and then just this is the relaxation phase, just breathing out. And then you can extend that a little bit. So here the lower back is really rounding out. And then here it can just arch slightly. And now let's just alternate it as we do, and just feel how this just introduces a turn. So the yielding side will tend to retreat away from the person. And so that will produce a turn. So just feel, try not to let the spine move side to side, because a lot of the energy gets dissipated then. So just feel the spine as being like this central axle, and you're just turning from one side to the other. And just feel the leg pits. So, in Tai Chi, they make a lot of the armpits, don't they? You imagine you have golden apples in your armpits, so you never let the arms collapse against the sides. You always keep the armpits open. It's the same here with the leg pits. So here I'm sort of scooping. I'm scooping in here to sort of encourage it to be open. encourage it to open a little bit more, just trying not to let my tail flick back, because when it opens here, the tail will tend to go back. Yeah, so you're just doing figures of eights with the hands and just imagining the bottom of the figure of eight just scooping into your groin and opening out the hip there. Okay, so now let's just bring it back to riding horse. So now rooting, so the weight predominantly in the heels, and this sense of the lower back rounded so that the whole spine can just scoop underneath you. So when you're in this position, you become very smooth. It's like you've got a shell, like an egg, that sort of come out into your ward-off limit, and like an aura that's just smooth and containing. So for this, the tail really has to be under, but I don't want to wrench it. I don't want to pull with the muscles here. I just want to relax it down. Yeah. And just withdraw into this shell. You should feel like home. And then we just want to come onto the toes, so off the heels, and just rock onto the toes. So here, this is spirit, yeah? So this is getting this rising fizzy energy coming up from the ground and filling me. So my shell it's like my shell cracks and I sort of come out of it and I'm suddenly spiky. So the opposite of being smooth. So I've got all these detail, all this sort of like spines, wings, horns, tail. Yeah? And the little coccyx, it sort of kicks back a little bit. So this is, it's the difficulty with Tai Chi is that, when we're in rooting phase, so going back into the heels, then the tail is controlled, and if anything, it comes under. But then when we go into spirit phase and lift the heels, come onto the front of the foot, then the tail kicks back a little bit, points backwards, without my sacrum angling back too much. So we just want to feel it, just become aware of it. So this is like the creature that's inside the egg. And then when I rock back onto my heels, I become the shell, the egg. Yeah. So if you gave an egg to someone that had never seen an egg before, they'd never guess in a million years what was inside it. Especially if there was a little chick, a chirpy chick. They get such a shock when they broke it. So it's a bit like that here. This smooth, enveloped shell gives no indication of what's there when you lift your heels and you become this sort of creature. this little devil. And then just rocking the heels back and letting just the general straightening of the spine and the sinking of the spirit to bring you back into this shell. And then one more, so just coming forwards and just feel how it destabilizes you. Your root comes up and now you're a bit wobbly and shaky. And so your spirit has to come up just to catch you really if you toppled, yeah. And just the heels rocking back down and ooh. So it's like long energy. So when the spirit comes up, everything's sort of, there's a speed there, a quickness. And then when you go back into the root, it just becomes long and slow. So it's a bit like this when we're doing the form. So, the form is slow and even and continuous. And that's like the rooting, long energy. But within that, there's this, it can sort of flit. Okay, now let's just try just this thing of just lifting the foot. Let's just, so with a sort of modest shoulder width stance, just moving from leg to leg like we were doing in riding horse. And just feeling as I come into this leg is just relaxing onto the foot. Yeah. And then as I come into this leg is just almost left behind. It's left stuck there on the ground. So this sense of moving in both directions, there's a body movement in this direction, but there's something moving in this direction as well. Yeah, so it's this sense of two, of there being two things to me, two aspects all the time, that helps just break the oneness of the ego. So as I relax into this leg has to relax over here. Otherwise, there's tension here holding me together. So, ooh. Yeah, so as we, when we come into our dual aspect, then basically we're without ego. We have experience of that a lot, so whenever you're confronted by something that's more interesting than you are, which doesn't take a lot, then the ego is dropped. So this is what's happening here. When I come here, but I relax this, I'm just dropping the ego. And suddenly, the space just seems more alive and more interesting than it usually is. So here I'm coming into ego, if you like, as I go through that double-weighted point. And then here I can just let it sink and relax. And then here, so a lot of the tension that we hold on to in our legs it's just the ego, really. It's just us not wanting to let that go. So the ego is something that we let go of all the time, in order to engage the outside world properly. But we always come back to it. There's a sense that we always come back to ego, especially when we're on our own. So we'd just like it the other way around. It's like every now and then we construct the ego, we pull ourselves together in a certain way in order to basically contend with other egos. But our natural ground state when we're on our own is this double aspect of just being really just content and peaceful within your own space. So you're not, sort of harping after, you're not looking for other things to entertain you. It's enough simply just to be breathing, really. Yeah. And now let's just look at, how do we actually bring the foot off the ground? It's actually really difficult, yeah? So both my arms are going out like this. Now I want to pull this foot up, yeah? So basically that bit in the form, where we do this, and then we round one of them out, the other one sticks out the side. It's basically, that's bringing the foot up, yeah? So I'm sinking into this leg. And now here, as I come into this foot, I'm splitting. And then this arm rounding in just brings up the foot. But it requires this, it requires a little bit of extra weight here for that foot to come up without me sort of getting tense here in the hips, yeah? So let's just try, just stepping. So you're in this foot and then you just split like we were doing, just let both hands just slip down. And then just feel this arm is coming in. So the leg just does exactly the same as the arm. So the arm goes out and the leg comes in. And I just want to feel that I've got as little tension around here as possible. So I really have to feel the heaviness of the leg wanting to pull down. And that's being balanced by the heaviness of my arm wanting to pull in that direction. Yeah. So this arm is not just here, it's moving that way with my mind. My intention is moving in that direction. Yeah. And then I can just put this down and then just slip into it here. And then just bring the leg in with the hand. Again, just trying to keep it relaxed here. Wow, it's difficult. And then the leg goes out. Ooh. And then splitting here. Yeah, so just feel it's tottering. It's it's sort of switching between the outside edge and the inside all the time. Yeah? And there's always a tendency to fall this way. And it's quite rare that you actually fall in this direction. That's just the mind. It's just the fearful mind. So we just want to really settle into that outside edge and just keep this very active, my right hand going in that direction. And then I can get this balance without having pulled this leg up and tense to the hip. And then it can just go back down again. And then as soon as it hits the ground, ooh, the weight of the leg is already in it. Yeah. So this is the problem with the stepping in the Tai Chi. You take the foot off the ground and you step. And then you have to do something. You have to open the hips to get the weight back into the leg that's come up. So we just like it just to be automatic. So I put the foot down and instantly the foot goes down flat. Ooh, it's already got the weight in it. And then that flow, I can just follow it in order to get my weight into that leg. And ooh. And yeah, so when the foot is on the ground properly, with just the weight of the leg in it, then basically both feet have got a really good purchase with the ground. And so you can use the legs to produce this sort of shake, this shaky twisting. So that is, in a sense, that's the test. So in the form, you can, when you step, you can just give yourself a little wiggle and then bring the weight into the foot. And that's just a test that you're on the ground properly, because that shake is quick and lively. Yeah. So we want to be heavy in the foot to get the weight, the root down, but I don't want to be packed so hard that it makes it difficult for me to pick the foot up. So as I'm sinking into the foot down, there's a real sense that something else is coming up and just pushing the joint, giving the joints a bit of breathing space. So when I put this foot down and just relax it onto the ground, so now it's got the weight of the leg in it, there's not an enormous difference between the two legs. So this shake, is real. It's possible. And then the foot goes down, and then I just relax it. So now it's got the heaviness of the leg there. And now I can just, I've got this play between the legs. Because what tends to happen, if this leg is still tense and I have to push across a certain distance, basically 50-50, before it's really active, I want it to be active as soon as it hits the ground. And then send the foot out, just let the leg be on the ground. And then I've got this play. Yeah, so I want this twisting not to be so much something that's being generated here, but just the play of my 2 feet that's producing this wiggle. Oh, so difficult. And then really, I've got this. It's just really just letting go of that part of you that wants to control. Okay, so let's just bring it back to riding horse. I was teaching someone yesterday. I was just trying to explain that sort of that playful sense that, you know, when you don't have the ego in operation too much, everything just becomes a giggle, yes, and just play, yeah. And she said, it sounds to me like you're describing a drug experience. And I says, exactly, it's exactly that. Yeah. Yes, when you've taken whatever it is you take, then you know, there's just more there. Yeah, you're not keeping the world out, and we don't realize we're doing it. You know, we're so tense and such control freaks. We don't realize just how much we're stunting the world and stunting ourselves, our own participation, you know, our own being, our own spirit. Yeah, and I mean, every time we work now, you just got to just try and be aware of that, you know, what I call the third equilibrium. So the one between, you know, you that you're containing and the you that is everything else that just fills the universe. Yeah, so here, the more I can sort of clarify in my mind that partition, the boundary, then the more they can split into the two. So this is the one we don't really want it to get too muddy, yeah? And so I'm very much containing myself within my ward off, like I'm hooding my eyes or blinkering my eyes. And then my awareness, so my consciousness is here, if you like, but my awareness is with the outside. So we have to really appreciate the difference between consciousness and awareness. So basically, consciousness is that part of your awareness that you can put words to, if you like, the part that's all very much part of our internal dialogue, you know. So we're talking to ourselves all the time to try and get a handle really on what's coming into our consciousness or what's already there, you know. And so we're using words to try and give us a sense of some sort of control over what we're conscious of. Whereas the awareness is very much without words. Yeah, there's some part of me that just reaches out and can just touch. So instead of you being a conscious subject that is experiencing this world that's outside you, you're just a thing that's connected to all the other things. So that's what the awareness feels. It feels connectivity, connections. And the consciousness, as soon as it interposes words, then basically it's disconnected. And then the consciousness, then it has an empire. It has all these things under its control, but it doesn't have any connection. Yeah? And so it's desperately lonely. And that's why we talk to ourselves. Yeah, we're all crazy. When I was a kid, every now and then you'd see someone walking in the street and they'd be muttering to themselves. And my mum would say, "Oh, they're crazy, they're mad." So talking to yourself was an indication of madness. Yeah. So we're all mad. We're just not voicing it. It's all going on up here. So growing up, if you like, is coming out of that and just being able to just be quiet and just with your being, your aware being, a being that is affecting other beings. Yeah. Okay, so let's just bring it up. Let's try it with the toes angled in just to get a feeling of the lower back spreading. I mean, you can do it like in yoga with just the feet, both feet pointing directly forwards. Again, just maintaining that sense of the 2 feet. So the ego is centered here in the head, but my energy is centered here. So my big self, the one the Indians talk about, the good big self with a capital S, that's very much centered here. So the same student who complained that I was advocating drugs, she's always saying, "I've just got no feeling for my Dan Chen." And it's, I'm not surprised because you're totally here. Yeah. So, it's just a matter of time. It just takes real patience. You can't rush it. You've just got to just do your practice, really. Of course, it's the one thing she doesn't do. My favorite of John's sayings, is when he'd sort of look at a lazy student and just say, "I can't do the work for you. And if I could, I wouldn't." Yeah, so when you get out of the head, the ego requires some sort of unnatural stability for it to sort of talk, yeah? And so it will institute tension just to lock out just the natural movement from your metabolic processes. And so when you feel yourself wobbly and shaky, it's probably a good sign that you've just let go up here a little bit, and now you're, ooh. And it is like feeling a little bit drunk. Yeah, you're ooh. And when you're drunk, you can sort of lose your balance and laugh about it. It's not so serious. So that's, yeah. So not so serious. Okay, so let's finish.